This is funny. A listener sent this. I can't remember who it was, so I apologize. An Anchorage, Alaska mayoral debate. The thing that struck me about this is that we have so many people like this mayor in this country now who are just completely oblivious. And one of the real problems with the sort of like how authoritarian and conspiratorial and knee-jerk the right wing has become in this country is that I want to say monetize it, although in certain instances they do monetize it, but it's a currency. And so they can get elected to things in the complete absence of, in the context of like a mayor seat, like competence. Or just like, basic, like sort of like problem solving, because it's not important. Like, I'm not going to be some egghead and come in with some theory about what we need to do for X, Y, or Z. All I need to do is like say woke, and then I win an election. That's obviously how this guy became mayor, Dave Bronson. And here's a debate between Mayor Dave Bronson from Anchorage and opponent Suzanne LaFrance. I presume LaFrance is a Democrat, although I have no idea, based upon the way that Dave Bronson is talking about it. But maybe it's just because she's a woman. I'm not sure. But here is, this is like, well, let's watch this.
And let's talk about two of the harshest words that you've used to describe each other during this campaign. Mr. Bronson, you've called your opponent woke, and Ms. LaFrance, you've called Mayor Bronson incompetent. I'm going to ask each of you for specifics. Mayor, what does woke mean when it applies to Ms. LaFrance?
Well, my first exposure to the word, because you're asking for a definition, so I'll go back a little over 3 years. I'm campaigning. I'm in neighborhoods. I'm walking, door knocking with a young guy who's a waiter, and he's, by his own description, says, "Yeah, I'm very left," but he's helping me run, and he's a waiter at a large restaurant, a popular restaurant downtown, and he says, and we were in the truck warming up. It was February, and he says, "Dave, you got to really start paying attention to this woke thing." I go, wow. Literally the first time in my life, I must have been living under a stump somewhere, that I heard about it. And I says, he starts talking about it. He says, it's taken over the world.
So what is it?
Well, I think by example, I would explain it as when I see men playing in women's sports, I think woke. When I see anti-Semitism on campuses, which is raging right now, I think woke. When I see, and I'll just call it what it is, when I see men in tutus gyrating in front of little boys in a public school, I think woke. Drag queen reading hour, let's call it that. So if those aren't the right examples,
what does that have to do with her? And
hold on, pause it for a second. I just want this to sink in a little bit. When he first tries to explain woke, it is a left-winger who was helping him campaign. They were in a truck together, and he said, "You got to understand this woke stuff more." And so it's basically what Dave said. And the person says, "Well, wait, what? Do you have a definition?" Yes. Men in tutus gyrating in front of kids, and anti-Semitism on college campuses, which apparently only existed in the past couple of months, according to him.
I love the citation of the left-wing waiter guy who really is anti-woke but wants to help this guy knock doors.
It's very strange. But then the moderator, to her credit, and just go back a little bit here, the moderator, to her credit, is like, okay, what does this have to do with your opponent? You said anti-Semitism on college campuses and men gyrating in tutus. Incidentally, I don't know if you've ever caught Rudy Giuliani's turn at drag, where he was literally gyrating.
And just to clarify, I looked this up.
America's mayor.
So technically, the Anchorage, this mayoral race is nonpartisan defined, but you can. I'm just looking at Suzanne LaFrance's website relative to him. She's definitely more of like a centrist candidate, while he could obviously be deduced to be a Republican.
Oh, I would imagine. I mean, yeah.
And she's leading very slightly over him as we speak.
Oh boy. Okay.
popular restaurant downtown. And he says,
are the specials?
and we were in the truck warming up, it was February, and he says, Dave, you got to really start paying attention to this woke thing. I go, wow. Literally, the first time in my life, I must have been living under a stump somewhere.
Israel
that I heard
flag
about it.
on
I said,
his
what did
lapel.
he start talking about? He
Nice.
says, it's taken over the world.
So
You
what,
gotta pay.
what is it?
Well, I think by example, I would explain it as when I see
Not by example. Yeah.
men playing in women's sports, I think woke. When I see anti-Semitism,
So the
on
existence of
campuses,
trans
which is
people and anti-Semites on campus. Keep going. I mean, it's
raging
just
right now. I think woke. When I see, and I'll just call it what it is, when I see men in tutus gyrating in front of little boys in a public school,
On my
I think
phone.
woke. Drag queen reading hour, let's call it that.
What does
So
that have
if
to do
those
with-
aren't the right
I guess
examples,
what does
then
that
they're
have to
not
do
the-
with her and governance?
Well, it's a political ideology. It's a far left political ideology. It's the newest version of a far left political ideology. It comes into rampant public spending, overtaxation, inefficient government.
I guess explain how men dressing or how people dress or how anti-Semitism comes into things and men and women's sports. How does that come into government and spending too much?
Well,
What does that
no,
have
you're
to do
looking
with
for
spending?
icons of a worldview. I'll call it this: tax and spend liberal. She's a tax and spend liberal. But she's proven it. She's a prolific
What do
spender.
you
She never saw
what
tax.
do you
she
think
didn't like.
about this?
Well, local government is all about doing the work, getting
Oh, listen to what she says.
the job done. The job isn't getting done. It's not about left or right. It's not about red or blue. It's about doing the work.
But when he uses the word woke, what does that mean to you? And what do you think he's trying to say about you?
I think that he's trying to distract from the real issues. The fact that, the snow plowing didn't get done for 2 years, that we've got a staffing crisis at
Woke
APD.
snow.
We're down over
Anchorage,
50
you probably
sworn
don't need snow
officers. And, the books haven't been closed now for 2 years. The financial audits aren't done. We've not made progress on homelessness. I think this is a distraction. It's intended to make people afraid and to scare them that I'm some.
Is that the reason you bring up the word incompetent when you were describing this concept?
I bring up the word incompetent because it applies. I mean, for the last 3 years, we've seen scandals, lawsuits. We've seen people, in key positions who do things that are the opposite of competent and put the municipality at risk, whether that's the former HR director or the former, head of the health department.
Okay, this is unfair because everybody knows that incompetent means banning men in tutus.
Yeah.
Yes. The top priorities
Also.
for the people of Anchorage, who I guess they'd be happier, according to this guy, if he's on the college campuses worrying about, anti-Israel stuff. And that Israel flag on his lapel is
Yeah.
hilarious. And monitoring all the men dressed in ways that he thinks is very scandalous and definitely isn't turned on by, as opposed to can the snow get plowed and can we staff our facilities and things like that.
I did note that he didn't say children, he said young boys, which I thought was sort of an odd. Aren't you
weird.
worried about men in tutus gyrating in front of
Young
girls
girls,
too, or
right.
something? But anyways, I mean, if that's what you're going to be worried about, but the point of this is just sort of how here's a guy running against an opponent on the term woke, has never even spent more than 5 minutes trying to figure out what that means, just in case someone wants to know. And he hasn't had to.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that he gets elected just by evoking the word woke. And his ding-dong constituency is I got a 4-wheel drive vehicle. I don't really need that much of a plow job on the streets of Anchorage. As long as it's not above my clearance, as long as I can't, as long as 4 feet, I'll be fine as long as I got a guy who just says the word woke as if it's a problem.
He's right that it represents an evolution, but the evolution it means is sort of the evolution that Lee Atwater was talking about in 1981, where you used to say things like the N-word, and now you say things like woke.
And if she's woke, but she's gonna make like basically the streets clean, and she's gonna staff the agencies that she promises to, then sign me up for wokeness. I mean, that's what that clip, that contrast shows, right?
Yeah.
Which is that she's talking about something that's legitimate, and he's talking about, I don't know, right-wing gobbledygook that has no application to, I would imagine, Anchorage, Alaska.
And it's funny to apply, again, throw it at that like a centrist. She's I don't know her. I don't think she's a super progressive. And she has to be like, this is not really even my stuff. I'm just trying to get the snowplows working
Yeah,
at 8 a.m.
no, I imagine, I think what he's really saying is like, she's a lady.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's just good for that reporter.
Let me give a series of examples that are going around in my fevered imagination.
Right.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.